Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are opening a file that I have to admit, it gave me actual chills when I first started reading through the material.
Yeah.
And yes, that pun is absolutely intended, though the subject matter is actually quite serious. We are talking about the cold,
Right.
but we aren't talking about it in the way you might expect. We're not reviewing winter coats or, discussing how to build an igloo.
No.
We are talking about the physics of staying alive when the heat goes out.
It is a fascinating topic because it deals with a paradox that I think very few people actually understand.
Okay.
We tend to think of freezing as a lack of resources. We think, oh, that person froze because they didn't have energy or they didn't have food. But the source material we're looking at today just flips that entirely on its head.
Right. And the source we are diving into is a paper titled IsoTone Heater, a quantitative practical framework for converting food energy into body warmth under cold exposure. It's by Lev Nemotin. And right in the introduction, Nemotin hits us with this really haunting fact.
Yeah, that part is chilling.
It is. He points out that people have died of cold exposure while carrying food in their pockets. They were fully conscious. Sometimes they were only a few hours from rescue.
That is the paradox right there. They had the fuel, a candy bar, a sandwich. That represents a massive amount of chemical energy. But they died because of a conversion problem.
A conversion problem. That's a really specific way to phrase it.
It's the only way to phrase it accurately. The danger in these scenarios isn't that the tank is empty. It's that the body cannot turn that fuel into retained heat fast enough to combat the environment.
So it's like having a car full of gasoline, but the engine won't start.
It's exactly like that. It's like having a pile of coal in your living room, but no furnace to burn it in. The coal is just, it's useless potential energy unless you have the mechanism to release the heat.
And that is what we are unpacking today. And we should be clear, we aren't talking about extreme survival heroics here.
Not at all.
We aren't talking about climbing Everest or falling into an Arctic Ocean. We are talking about something much more common, and in some ways, much more insidious. We are going to look at what Nemotin calls the medium deficit scenario.
Which is essentially the creeping cold.
The creeping cold.
It's 32 degrees Fahrenheit or 0 Celsius. Maybe the power went out in your apartment building in the dead of winter. Maybe your car broke down on a lonely road. You are dressed, you aren't wet, but you are slowly, steadily losing the battle.
And the mission of this deep dive is to solve that problem. We are going to look at how to move from that feeling of helplessness to a state of what the paper calls thermal stability.
Right.
And we are going to do it using physics, physiology, and a specific tool mentioned in the paper called the IsoTone.
And just to set the tone here, this isn't about panic. The paper is incredibly grounded.
Yeah, it reads like an engineering manual, not a survival guide.
It does. It's about math. It's about managing an equation. If you can balance the equation of heat loss versus heat production, you don't just survive, you stay functional.
You stay capable.
Exactly. This is about moving from a state of emergency to a state of management.
Okay, let's unpack this. Section 1. The physics of being cold. The heat balance. I think most of us just know that being cold feels miserable. But scientifically, what is actually happening to our bodies?
Well, we need to define that medium deficit a little more clearly.
Okay.
In the scenario, the Nemotin models, you're in appropriate clothing.
Yeah.
It's freezing outside 0 Celsius. There's a moderate wind. You aren't, naked in the snow.
Sure.
But because you are at rest, maybe sitting in that cold apartment or waiting in that car, your body's generating about 100 watts of heat just to keep your organs running.
100 watts. So we are basically talking bright light bulbs.
Roughly, yes. That is your basal metabolic rate plus a little bit for, just sitting up. But here is the problem. In that 0-degree environment, the cold is stealing heat from you at a rate of maybe 150 or 200 watts.
Oh, wow.
So do the math. You have a net heat deficit. You are losing 50 to 100 joules of energy every single second that you can't replace.
Every sec.
Every single second. It's a constant leak.
And what does that actually feel like? Because the paper mentions it's not immediate agony. It's not like touching a hot stove.
No, and that's the trap. It's a slow, progressive discomfort. You feel chilly.
Yep.
Then you feel tired. Then your fingers get a little clumsy.
You might drop your phone.
You might drop your phone. You might feel a bit of brain fog. It's not a dramatic movie moment where you turn into an icicle instantly. It's a battery slowly draining.
And the equation is simple.
It is. Change in body heat equals heat produced minus heat lost.
Right.
If the lost number is bigger than the produced number, you cool down. The goal of this entire framework is to flip that equation. We need to boost the produced side without accidentally increasing the lost side.
And that brings us to the enemy. Why do we lose heat even when we are wearing a good coat?
Two main thieves: convection and evaporation.
Okay.
Convection is the wind. Even with a coat, wind strips the warm air layer away from your outer shell. It penetrates fabrics. It finds the gaps in your zippers around your neck.
It's relentless.
It is. But the bigger villain, the one Neimotin warns about repeatedly, is evaporation.
Sweat.
Sweat. In a survival situation where you are limited on heat, sweat is a disaster.
Why is it so much worse than just being in cold air?
Because water conducts heat away from the body 25 times faster than air.
25 times?
Yeah. If you get wet, you have essentially opened the floodgates for heat loss. You turn your expensive insulation into a conductor. It works against you.
This is where the typical advice fails, right? I feel like if I told someone I'm freezing, they'd say, do some jumping jacks, run in circles, wiggle your toes.
And that is well-intentioned, but frankly dangerous advice in this specific context.
Dangerous, really.
Yes. Think about a jumping jack. What are you actually doing with your coat?
It's moving around a lot.
You are flailing your arms and legs. You are physically pumping your coat like a bellows.
The bellows effect?
Exactly. You are physically pumping the warm air trapped next to your skin, the air you worked so hard to heat up out into the environment, and simultaneously you are sucking cold air in through the neck and waist.
So you're just venting your own heat. You're throwing it away.
You are actively destroying your microclimate. So you lose your insulation barrier immediately.
That makes perfect sense. Wow.
And it gets worse. Jumping jacks are high intensity. You do them for 2 minutes, your heart rate spikes, and what happens next?
You start to sweat.
You start to sweat. Then you get tired and stop.
Yeah.
Now you are wet, your insulation is cold and damp, and you are far worse off than when you started.
So we need a way to generate heat that doesn't pump air out of our clothes and doesn't make us sweat.
Precisely. We need a controlled burn, not a bonfire. We need efficiency.
Which leads us to the fuel. Section 2, the energy potential. The paper uses a very specific example, a standard 220-calorie sports bar.
Right, and this is where the physics gets really cool. We see a calorie, and we think about weight gain or dieting. But in physics, a calorie is just a unit of heat energy.
Okay.
1 food calorie, which is actually a kilocalorie, is enough energy to heat 1 kilogram of water by 1 degree Celsius.
So that little bar in your pocket isn't just a snack, it's a battery.
It is a significant battery. A 220 kcal bar contains roughly 920,000 joules of chemical energy.
Wait, say that number again?
920,000 joules. Almost a megajoule.
That sounds like a massive amount of energy for something that fits in the palm of your hand.
It is massive. And here is the key statistic from Neimotin's research. When you metabolize that food through resistance activity, using your muscles, roughly 85% of that energy becomes usable body heat.
85% efficiency. That's better than most car engines.
Much better. The body is incredibly efficient at turning chemical energy into heat when it works against resistance.
So you're saying inside that one candy bar, there are about 780,000 joules of thermal compensation just waiting to be unlocked.
Waiting to be unlocked is the perfect phrase.
But again, we go back to the conversion problem you mentioned at the start. The bar sits in your pocket like a lump of coal.
Right. If you just eat it and sit there shivering, your body will try to metabolize it, but slowly, inefficiently.
Shivering feels like work, though. Isn't that doing something?
Shivering is the body's last-ditch attempt to create a furnace, but it's uncontrolled. It creates that bellows effect we talked about because you're shaking, and it's psychologically and physically exhausting.
Right.
We want to take control of that process. We need a transmission system to take the potential energy of the food and turn it into kinetic and thermal energy on demand.
So we have the fuel. We have the desire to get warm. Now we need the tool. Enter the IsoTone.
Yes.
This is central to Neimotin's proposal. The paper describes the IsoTone device not just as a piece of fitness gear, but effectively as a survival heater. Can you describe what this thing is for our listeners?
Conceptually, it's a compact resistance tool. Think of it as a device that, well, it opposes your movement. But the magic, the real key here, lies in the mechanism, automatic resistance.
Automatic resistance. That sounds important. What does that mean practically for someone who's sitting in the cold?
It means there are no weight stacks. There are no dials you have to turn to say, give me 50 pounds of pressure. The device responds to you.
It responds.
Yes. The harder you push against it, the more it resists. If you push gently, it gives you gentle resistance. If you push like a bodybuilder,
Mm-hmm.
it pushes back like a bodybuilder.
Why is that specifically important for someone who is freezing? Why not just use, I don't know, a dumbbell or a spring?
Because your energy levels fluctuate wildly when you're under stress. If you are freezing, tired, and maybe haven't eaten much, you can't be struggling with a heavy fixed weight. You might hurt yourself or just give up.
Okay.
With automatic resistance, the machine meets you exactly where you are. It allows you to engage your muscles, your furnace, at whatever intensity you can manage in that moment. It removes the barrier to entry.
And by engaging the muscles, we are burning that candy bar.
We are converting the chemical energy into heat, but, and here's where it gets really fascinating, there's a dual heating action here.
Dual heating, what do you mean?
Yes. First, you have the metabolic heat.
Okay, that's for my muscles working.
Exactly. That's your muscles burning glucose and generating warmth internally. That warms your blood, which circulates the rest of your body. Your core temperature rises.
Right.
But secondly, there is mechanical heat.
From the device itself.
From the device itself.
Hmm.
Because it is a resistance device based on friction or fluid dynamics, depending on the model, the energy you put into it doesn't just disappear. Physics dictates that energy is conserved.
It has to go somewhere.
It has to go somewhere. And it turns into heat inside the device.
So the IsoTone literally gets warm in your hands.
It becomes a physical heat source. Like a hot water bottle, it doesn't run out of heat as long as you are moving it. You can press it against your chest, put it on your legs.
That is incredible. So you are warming yourself from the inside out with your metabolism and warming yourself from the outside in with the device.
Correct. And this brings us to the underclothing advantage. Remember the jumping jacks?
The bellows effect, pumping all the warm air away.
Right. The IsoTone is compact. You hold it in your hands. You can use it inside your jacket. You can use it inside a sleeping bag. You can use it under a blanket on the couch.
So you aren't breaking the insulation seal ever.
You never expose your core to the cold air. You are generating, 100 or 200 watts of heat effectively within your own microclimate.
So you're heating the air that matters, the air trapped next to your skin.
Not the air blowing away from you across the parking lot. Yeah.
This seems like such a game changer. You eliminate the wind chill penalty entirely.
You do. And psychologically, that is huge. You can curl up, stay small, minimize your surface area, and still be generating massive amounts of warmth. It's quiet, it's contained, and it's incredibly efficient.
Okay, let's look at the numbers. Section 4. The math of survival. I know we wanted to keep the bank account analogy short, but it does help visualize the deficit.
It does. It's a useful shorthand. Very quickly.
Yeah.
Think of your body heat as money. In this medium deficit scenario, you're losing, let's say, $100 an hour to the cold.
Okay.
At rest, your body is only making $50 an hour, so you're going bankrupt. That is the process of freezing.
And using the IsoTone changes the deposit rate.
Exactly. The paper calculates that using the device can add 40 to 60 watts of heat production. It doesn't just add heat, it effectively lowers the cost of staying alive. It slows the bleeding.
But here is what really blew my mind reading this, the timeline extension. Nemotin runs the numbers in Appendix A.
Yes. Let's look at Scenario A versus Scenario B. It's really stark.
Lay it out for us.
In Scenario A, you do nothing. You just sit there. You have a 75-watt deficit. You have the candy bar in your pocket.
Yeah.
Even if you could access that energy perfectly at rest, which you can't, really, but let's just say for the math, that energy would keep you neutral for maybe 3 hours.
3 hours. That's not a lot of time if you're waiting for a rescue team or, for the power to come back on.
No, it's a very short window.
Right.
But now look at Scenario B. You introduce the IsoTone intervention. You start generating that extra 50 watts of heat. That reduces your deficit from 75 watts down to only 25 watts.
So you've slowed the drain on your battery.
Massively. And that same candy bar now lasts nearly 9 hours.
Wait, let me repeat that. We didn't add more food. We didn't get a bigger coat. We just improved the efficiency of the system, and we tripled our survival time.
That is the power of the math. You stretch the fuel, and actually, it can get even better.
How does it get better than tripling the time?
The break-even point.
Yeah.
Let's say your deficit is 50 watts, which is a very realistic number for a cold room, maybe 40 degrees Fahrenheit.
Okay.
And let's say using the IsoTone at a moderate pace provides 50 watts of heat.
You hit 0. The loss and the production are equal.
You hit thermal neutrality. You stop getting colder entirely. The downward trend line flattens out. As long as you have food to put in the engine and water to stay hydrated, you can sustain that temperature indefinitely.
You stabilize the patient.
You've stabilized the patient yourself.
That is the difference between a tragedy and a really, really uncomfortable night.
It's the difference between life and death in many cases.
So we know the what, the isotone, we know the why, the physics. Now we need the how. Section 5, the protocol. Because I imagine the temptation is to just grab this thing and crank on it like you're trying to win the Tour de France until you're warm.
And Nemotin is very clear. Do not do that. The mantra is cycle, don't sprint.
Why? If I'm cold, why shouldn't I sprint? My instinct is to go as hard as I can.
The sweat trap.
Well,
I cannot emphasize this enough. If you work continuously, your body temperature will spike, and your hypothalamus will trigger a sweat response to cool you down.
which, as we established, is a disaster.
In survival situations, sweat is the enemy. It destroys your insulation. It's game over.
So what is the protocol? What do you actually do?
It's intermittent activity. The paper suggests a work phase of 3 to 5 minutes, followed by a rest phase of 10 to 20 minutes.
That feels slow. It doesn't sound like much work.
It's discipline. Think of it as a heat pulse. You use the device for a few minutes to generate a burst of warmth. You fill your jacket with warm air. Then you stop.
And you just sit there.
You trap that heat. You let it settle. You enjoy the warmth. You let your insulation do its job.
And just as you start to feel the chill creeping back in,
You do another pulse. You generate another wave of heat. It's a sine wave of temperature, keeping you in the safe zone without ever crossing the threshold into sweating.
okay, that makes sense. How do I manage the intensity within that 3 to 5 minute window? Is there a specific way to move?
Yes, the golden rule is to stop before you start sweating. If you feel the first beat of moisture, you've got a bit too far.
Right.
But specifically, Nemotin suggests a cadence. You start with 1 to 2 minutes of faster, lower resistance movements.
Just to wake the system up, get the blood moving.
Exactly. Get the blood flowing to the extremities is like a warm-up. Then you switch to 2 to 3 minutes of slower, higher resistance movements.
Why the switch? Why not just stay fast?
Slower, heavy movements generate deep metabolic heat without spiking your heart rate and breathing as much. It's a more efficient way to generate pure heat without, getting out of breath.
And there's a test for this, right? To make sure I'm not working too hard.
The talk test. It's very simple.
Yeah.
You should always be able to speak in full sentences. If you are gasping for air, you are working too hard. You are risking moisture buildup. You need to back off.
It seems so counterintuitive. It takes a lot of discipline to stop exercising when you are finally starting to feel warm. The impulse is to keep going.
It does. But you absolutely must stop to preserve that heat. If you keep going, you get wet, and then when you eventually do stop, because you will get tired, you will freeze twice as fast. You've undone all your hard work.
Let's talk about where this actually applies. Section 6, real-world scenarios. Because when we talk about survival, I think listeners imagine a guy with a beard on a mountaintop.
Sure, and it absolutely works there. A cold tint in the mountains is a perfect example.
Yeah.
But the source material highlights a much more relatable and, frankly, heartbreaking example.
The Kyiv apartment scenario.
Yes, the Kyiv apartment scenario. This was based on a Wall Street Journal report from January 2024.
Right.
You have modern infrastructure failure, you have residential buildings in a major city, no central heat because of the war, no electricity. It's January. The temperature indoors is dropping.
So you have families, grandmothers, children, sitting in their living rooms, fully clothed, but getting colder and colder.
Exactly. They aren't on a mountain, they are on their couch. But the temperature is dropping to freezing indoors. They are clothed, they are dry, but they are slowly freezing. This is the classic medium deficit.
And in that situation, you can't really do jumping jacks.
No. Imagine an 80-year-old woman in a crowded apartment. Is she going to run laps around the coffee table? It's impractical. And doing vigorous calisthenics in a living room full of furniture, maybe in the dark, is a recipe for injury.
Plus, in a social setting, it's just chaotic and loud.
Right. But the IsoTone fits perfectly here. It's silent. It doesn't need electricity. You can use it while sitting on the couch or lying in bed under a duvet.
That's a key point, maintaining dexterity. If you are just sitting there freezing, your hands stop working. You can't use a phone.
And your mind stops working. In a situation like Kyiv, you need to be able to text family. You need to be able to light a gas burner to cook safely. You need to plan. If you let yourself overcool, you lose the ability to do those things.
The goal isn't just not dying. It's maintaining the function zone.
Precisely.
It applies to other situations, too. The paper mentions the stranded commuter.
That's a nightmare scenario for many people.
Yeah.
Stuck in a car in a blizzard on the highway, the engine dies.
Right.
You have a half tank of gas, but the engine won't run. You run the battery down with the electric heater, eventually that dies too.
And if you get out of the car to run around, you get soaked by the snow and blasted by the wind.
Exactly. With the IsoTone, You stay in the driver's seat. You keep the door closed. You generate heat inside your coat. You preserve your energy. It turns a life-threatening night into a waiting game you can win.
Or the outdoor enthusiast, waking up cold in a tent.
We've all been there. If we've done any camping, it's 3 a.m. The sleeping bag isn't quite warm enough. You are shivering. What are your options?
Get out and do push-ups in the mud.
No thanks. Instead, you grab the device, you pull it into the sleeping bag with you, do a 5-minute cycle, and the whole bag just fills with warmth. You go back to sleep.
It really redefines what a survival tool looks like. It's not a knife or a fire starter, it's a heater.
It's a heater that runs on sandwich fuel.
Which brings us to the final piece of the puzzle. Section 7. Supporting strategy. We talked about the fuel, the candy bar, but there's strategy to eating it too.
Yes. This is really important. Synchronizing fuel and fire.
I assume I shouldn't just wolf the whole bar down in one bite when I feel cold.
No. That's reactive. We want to be proactive.
Yeah.
Nemotin suggests breaking that 220 kcal bar into 10 to 12 small bites.
Tiny bites, like a little bird.
Tiny bites. And you time them. Take a bite every 20 to 30 minutes. Ideally, right before you start a work cycle with the IsoTone.
What's the logic there? Why not just get it all in your system at once?
Digestion takes energy and blood flow. If you eat a huge meal, your body diverts blood flow to the stomach to digest it. That can actually make your extremities feel colder. It's sometimes called the digestive slump.
I think I've felt that after a big holiday meal.
Everyone has. By taking small bites, you trickle-feed glucose into the bloodstream exactly when the muscles, the furnace, are being activated to burn it.
You are injecting fuel right into the combustion chamber as it fires up.
Exactly. It keeps your blood sugar stable, keeps the heat production steady, and avoids that heavy, lethargic feeling. It's about maintaining peak efficiency.
It's also managed. That's the word that keeps coming to my mind. It's not frantic. It's not panicked.
It's engineered.
Oh.
And they connect to the psychological aspect, maintaining that comfort and function zone.
You touched on this earlier, the lice of dexterity.
It's critical. Overcooling makes you stupid and clumsy. There's a harsh way to say it, but it is true.
Yeah.
Confusion, fumbling with zippers, dropping your keys. In a survival situation, a dropped key in the snow can be fatal. A fumbled zipper can be a huge problem.
So using this protocol isn't just about raw body temperature. It's about keeping your fingers working so you can zip your coat. It's about keeping your brain working so you can make good decisions.
Yes. It keeps you capable. If rescue comes, you need to be able to wave or walk to them. If the power comes back on, you need to be able to check the breakers. You can't do that if you are borderline hypothermic.
So let's wrap this up. What we have here is it's a complete framework. We have a cold situation, a medium deficit. We have a fuel source, chemical energy, and food.
Right, the candy bar.
And we have a tool, the IsoTone, that acts as a furnace to convert that energy into heat using automatic resistance.
And we use physics, the underclothing protocol, to trap that heat efficiently instead of wasting it.
It really changes how I look at a simple candy bar. It's not just a snack anymore. It's potentially 9 hours of warmth if I manage it right.
It empowers you. You realize that you aren't helpless against the cold. You are a machine that produces heat as long as you operate the machine correctly.
I love that. So what is the final takeaway for our listeners? If they take one thing away from this deep dive into Lev and Emotin's work, what should it be?
I think it's a philosophical shift. We tend to view cold as a monster, something we have to fight or flee from, a brute force we have to struggle against.
Yeah.
But this framework teaches us to view it as an equation. It's just numbers, watts in, watts out. If you respect the math, you can control the outcome. You can manage it.
And the quote that sums it all up.
The goal isn't to fight the cold, but to manage it steadily and intelligently.
Steadily and intelligently. I like that. Thank you so much for breaking this down with us today.
My pleasure. Stay warm out there.
And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in to this deep dive. We'll see you next time.